The morning sunlight spilled across the glass facade of the city's tallest office building, glinting off the polished steel and marble floors of the lobby. Maya adjusted the strap of her leather bag, her heels clicking softly against the marble, echoing through the nearly empty hall. Her first day at the company felt heavier than it should have, a mix of excitement and nerves pressing against her chest. The air smelled faintly of brewed coffee and new paper, a scent that seemed to promise possibility. She took a deep breath, smoothing her blouse, and stepped toward the elevator, rehearsing the introductions she would make. Nothing, she thought, could prepare her for the moment she first laid eyes on him. Ji-hoon stood at the far end of the conference room, reviewing a stack of reports with deliberate, exacting movements. The faint silver in his hair caught the light as he tilted his head, concentrating. He didn't look up immediately, absorbed in the task before him, and yet when his gaze finally met hers, a flicker of recognition, or perhaps curiosity, passed between them. Maya felt her pulse quicken, an almost imperceptible flutter in her stomach. He's married, older. My superior. Nothing more than my superior, she reminded herself, shaking her head subtly. But even as the thought settled in her mind, she couldn't deny a stirring in her chest. The first conversation was strictly professional. Ji-hoon welcomed her to the team, explaining workflow, deadlines, and expectations with a calm authority that made her respect him immediately. And yet there was something more. A glance that lingered a fraction too long, a small smile that seemed reserved only for her. Small sparks, insignificant to anyone else, but monumental to Maya. Over the next weeks, Maya immersed herself in work, determined to focus entirely on her projects. Yet even amidst spreadsheets and presentations, Ji-hoon's presence intruded on her thoughts. The sound of his voice over the phone, the way he paused just slightly before giving feedback. The subtle nod of approval when she solved a problem. All these moments wove a thread through her day she could not unravel. One rainy Thursday, the office nearly empty, she was sorting through files when a folder slipped from her hands. Papers scattered across the floor. Without thinking, she bent to pick them up, and their hands brushed. Electricity surged through her, sharp and immediate. Her eyes widened, heart pounding. "It's all right," Ji-hoon said, calm, steady, and somehow reassuring. "It's just human." Human. The word lodged in her mind, resonating long after he had returned to his desk. They were human, and yet she felt something more. Something that made her pulse quicken and her thoughts spiral. The next few weeks became a subtle dance of glances, accidental touches, and conversations that stretched just a moment too long. Coffee breaks became tiny rituals. She would linger at the machine, pretending to check her phone, only to catch him looking up from his paperwork. The hallway became a stage for brief, charged encounters, brief smiles that hinted at something neither dared name aloud. Maya's friends teased her in passing, noticing her distracted air during casual video calls. "New office crush?" one asked with a laugh. Maya smiled nervously, dismissing it. It was not a crush. She reminded herself constantly. Ji-hoon had a life, a family, responsibilities. She must maintain her composure. Ji-hoon, too, felt the pull, though he would never admit it aloud. Each glance from Maya sparked something he hadn't felt in years. Warmth, curiosity, longing. He had built his life with discipline, duty, and routine, but her presence reminded him of things he had buried. Desires, dreams, and a sense of aliveness that had been dulled over time. He noticed the way she laughed at minor jokes, the fire in her eyes when she presented ideas, and the unspoken intelligence that made her more than just a colleague. A minor accident became the first turning point. One afternoon, as they both reached for the same folder on his desk, their hands touched. Brief but lingering, just long enough to spark an awareness neither could ignore. I didn't mean..." Maya started, withdrawing her hand quickly. Ji-hoon shook his head gently, a faint, knowing smile on his lips. "It's all right," he said, calm, deliberate, carrying a depth she could not name. "We're human." After that, the tension between them thickened, unspoken yet palpable. Every hallway encounter, shared coffee, and project discussion was charged with a silent electricity. She caught herself replaying moments at home, how he had smiled at her when she presented her first report, how he had paused thoughtfully to listen to her ideas. She felt her resolve slipping, the moral boundaries she had promised herself melting with each encounter. At night, alone in her apartment, she considered her ambition, her integrity, and the silent pull toward her boss. I must stay professional, I cannot. And yet, the memory of his gaze, the warmth in his words, and the subtle touches haunted her. One evening, the office lights dimmed and only the hum of the ventilation system filled the air. She was reviewing a project with Jihoon, seated across from him at the long glass table. Their hands brushed once, twice, lingering just enough to send a jolt through them. "Jihoon, this isn't right," Maya whispered, voice trembling with the weight of unsaid feelings. He leaned slightly closer, eyes dark with conflicted emotion. "I know," he said, voice low, deliberate. "But I can't deny how I feel." Neither spoke again, yet the air between them seemed charged, vibrating with the intensity of what was developing. Weeks turned into months. They navigated shared lunches, extended meetings, and carefully coded emails that hinted at connection without revealing too much. Every encounter was both a temptation and a test of restraint. Their emotions, once quiet, had grown into a current impossible to resist. Maya realized in the quiet moments at her desk or while walking home in the evening rain that the invisible line had been crossed. Not physically, but emotionally. Admiration had grown into care, care had grown into longing, and she was teetering on the edge of love, a love she both desired and feared. Jihoon too felt the irreversible pull. Every glance, every conversation, every laugh from Maya reminded him of what had been missing from his life. He had responsibilities, a marriage, grown children, yet none of that mattered when she smiled at him, a quiet radiance that seemed to illuminate the dimmest corners of his world. By the time the first quarterly review ended, Maya understood one thing clearly. The beginning of something forbidden is silent. It is subtle touches, lingering glances, and shared moments that carry a weight greater than any spoken word. And in those moments, hearts are already crossing lines, even when reason cries to resist. As she walked home that evening, the city lights reflected on wet streets, mirroring the swirl of emotions inside her. She felt a thrill, a pang, a fear, and a longing. The story was just beginning, and neither she nor Jihoon could have predicted how deeply it would entangle their hearts.